now.
You seeing me live
So we
on
should be
Facebook?
good. We should be good. And this is an impromptu live because then it's like time escaped me as I went to a picnic at my 2-year-old's daycare because they were doing a picnic. It was so cute. So I got there and he was so excited. He's like, "My mommy." It was the cutest thing ever. So I'm glad I went. I missed my live time frame, but it was for good cause. So definitely happy to be here. And if you're catching live, hashtag live. If you're catching the replay, hashtag replay. Let's make sure you engage on here because it matters more than you know. Because then like, if you're not familiar with the algorithm and how Facebook works, how these social media platforms work, the more you engage with a piece of content, the more it knows that you actually like it and it pushes it elsewhere. And that's what I want because then I want to make sure that I'm here providing the information that you need. So join me in hashtag live. So we're gonna expand on and kind of talk about what I mentioned in the title, because then you want to ensure that your nonprofit organization is like you're not experiencing burnout, first of all, right? You're actually able to grow because that's the misconception. Like the more you're working, it's like things are working for your good. It's not always the case. So I want to talk about how to know if your nonprofit is really ready, right? Really ready for growth opportunities, ready for moving forward and all these things, applying for funds, like the readiness is what we're talking about. So, if you're new here, my name is Stacy, and I am a nonprofit consultant and strategist, and I help small to mid-sized organizations grow their impact and revenue generation potential through strategic planning and capacity building. So, let me know in the comments where you're watching from and what your nonprofit focuses on. I really want to know what it focuses on because it does help me create content and provide information and examples that are pertinent to you. Okay, so a quick question that I have to kick things off today that for those who are coming in the replay or watching live that you can answer, it's what's one opportunity you wish you had been ready for in the past year that your nonprofit organization missed, right? Was it a grant? Was it a partnership? Was it a big donor conversation? I want you to drop it in the comments because I want to hear what that is for you in your organization. Now, because then I want you to take the time, definitely put that in the comments because if you miss the opportunity, we got to figure out why. Okay. If this is your first time catching me live, I already said who I am, Stacy, nonprofit consultant and strategist, and I help with strategic planning and capacity building. Today, we're going to talk about and focus on the one thing that doesn't get enough attention in this sector is readiness because everybody wants to do the work, everybody wants to do good, but nobody's talking about whether or not they're ready, right? Because readiness plays a big role into all of this to ensure that you're able to grow and do better in the industry. So, not that we hope we're ready kind, right? We want to talk about the real systems backed and funder ready, growth aligned kind of ready. Okay, because the opportunities are actually out there. Let's make that clear. The opportunities are already out there, but if your nonprofit is not prepared to move when they show up, you're going to keep watching these opportunities pass you by, and that's going to be at the detriment of your organization because you're not able to take advantage of a lot of the opportunities that you're missing because you're not really focusing on the things that matter, like making sure that you are ready. Okay, so I'm gonna discuss and define what readiness actually means, right? It does not mean being perfect. That's the first thing I want to make very clear. It means being positioned. Okay. It means having your documents up to date and organized because I've asked nonprofit organizations, where is your registry, your trust or charity registry documentation from the state of California because some of my clients were in California. They don't know, right? They didn't organize it into folder. Where are your bylaws? I don't know. XYZ has it. They don't know. Where is your budget? Oh, the treasurer has that. That doesn't make sense. Your documents need to be up to date and organized. So if you, as one of the leaders of the organization or anybody else in the governance, like that's part of the governance team wants to access these documents, they can go there and see it in a way that it's already organized. Now, the other thing it means being able to talk about your impact with clarity. Okay, it's not mumbling and stuttering as to what you guys do or giving people a long story that doesn't make sense. Because I'm going to tell you right now, if somebody like I ask them what does the organization do and they start giving me a 2 minute sentence about what they do, I promise you my brain checks out. My brain checks out because that's so many words that I have to put together to understand how they make an impact. That should be something you're able to communicate with clarity and with ease. So you need to practice how to be able to talk about your impact in a way that is clear. Now, another thing that it means is having systems in place that can handle the growth. Now, do you have workflows set up if you have donors coming in, workflows to ensure there's engagement and outreach happening to people that make a donation, not just a receipt? Because a lot of people, oh, we set up the receipt, they get the receipt. That's not enough, right? There needs to be a workflow and something set up to ensure that people are being engaged with in a way that they know that there's this touch point, these touch points happening, because I encourage you to not only call these people and check on them, but having this workflow, like these systems set up, like your donation platform, is it set up in a way to support that? If you're going to ask for sponsorships, do you have a campaign page set up in your like donation software? So like Zeffy, GiveButter, you can set up campaigns. Do you have a page that's specifically for sponsors to ensure if you go and have a meeting and ask somebody for $10,000, you have a link you can send them so they can make the payment and go. Okay, so you want to make sure that you have systems in place that can handle the growth that you are asking for. And the fourth thing, you need to know your numbers. Now, I kid you not, I have met with too many leaders when I ask them for their numbers, they do not know them. Oh, the treasurer knows this, or this person knows that. That is not okay. You need to know your numbers and what you can realistically commit to. Because if you cannot commit to it and you're overexerting yourself and your organization and your team and your staff, what is happening is that you can't do it. You find yourself in a place where you bit off more than you could chew. So I want you, and the last thing that it means paying people fairly and not burning them out in the process. So that's the last thing I had in my notes. So those are all things you need to remember. This is what readiness looks for, and readiness shows up before opportunity does. So you have to be ready before opportunity knocks on your door. Because oftentimes when these opportunities pass you by, it's because there's something that's missing. So you should have your ducks lined up in a row before opportunity comes knocking, because you want to make sure that you are ready to jump on board whenever the train is moving. I know I talked about ducks, I talked about trains, but you get what I'm saying. You need to be ready. Because if you're waiting until a grant drops or a funder emails you to scramble and get it together, it's already too late. You need to make sure that you are ready and you have all these things in place to ensure that you are able to take advantage of these opportunities when they present themselves. Now, there's another cost of not being ready that a lot of people don't want to talk about. Like, according to Community Force, there's like 27% of nonprofits that actually struggle with collecting and managing their data. Like, they have no idea what to do with it. Like, oh yeah, we spoke to XYZ number of people. Okay, what does that mean? Like, are you collecting enough data? Is it just talking to them? Like, are you collecting every piece of information that's necessary to paint a picture of how your nonprofit is making an impact? And 24% of nonprofits actually lack internal expertise to manage opportunities. Like the opportunities come along for sponsors or relationships or partnerships that could help, but the person responsible or the leader has no idea what to do with it. They can't. They don't know what to do with it. They cannot manage these opportunities. Or let's say a grant opportunity comes by. This person has never written a grant in their life, so it passes by and nobody can do anything. Now, speaking of grants, I am planning to do a grant training or a grant masterclass, like probably at the end of April. I'm not trying to overexert myself, but it's coming. It's coming. I haven't done one since 2024. So there needs to be another one that comes along. So there's going to be a grant writing masterclass soon. So sign up for my email list if you have not yet to stay informed of when this masterclass is going to happen. Because I feel like if you are smaller and do not have the capacity to hire a grant writer, you need to know how to do it and how to manage your time effectively. So, and how to be ready so you can submit these applications, these grant applications in a way that feels less taxing. Okay. And 23% of nonprofits actually say they don't have the right technology. Now, we live in the age of technology. The fact that they do not have the right technology is a big red flag. And that's something that I want nonprofits to start working on and start understanding. Okay. Because that's nearly three quarters, like everything I just shared, it's nearly three quarters of all organizations that are missing out on funding, not because they're not qualified, but because they're not prepared. I've said that before, not being prepared can cost you opportunities, okay? And I want you to think about this. Like your level of preparedness, your level of readiness will be very important in how you run your organization and what your organization is able to do. That means the work that you're doing currently, it could be more visible. It could be funded by more individuals, but you do not have the foundation in place to ensure that the visibility is there and that sponsors and other stakeholders want to support the work that you're doing. Okay, so that's one thing I want you to keep in mind in terms of readiness slash preparedness. It opens doors for you and it makes sure that you're ready to take hold and take advantage of certain opportunities when time comes knocking. Okay. So I once worked with a nonprofit that supported youth mentorship and had amazing community impact. Now, that's the other thing. I love community-based organizations and I love seeing organizations that are working in workforce development. Yes, I work with community-based organizations mostly, but the ones that focus on youth, I'm a mom. It's great to see how nonprofits are able to make an impact in the youth, right? And this nonprofit had amazing community impact, like I was sharing. And thank you, Ricky. And when they had a $50,000 capacity building grant that became available, but they had to pass, not because they didn't need it or they couldn't apply for it. Well, they couldn't apply for it because they didn't have any like their model was out of date. They didn't like it didn't seem like they knew what they were doing on paper even though they had skilled staff that was able to implement the program, on paper it didn't look good, right? The budget was not approved by the board, like nothing was really concrete. There was this lack of readiness that was causing them to not be able to move forward and apply for grants in this specific grant in general, right? And there was no impact data that they could show on paper because they were not collecting information that was reflecting the impact that they were making. So it's not that they were not capable, they just were not ready. So I need you to open your ears, and I say this with love. You need to get it together and get your nonprofit ready. Like start creating the back end and the systems because when opportunities come knocking, if you're not ready, it's just going to leave. The train's going to leave you because you don't have your shoe on, you can't get on the train. So you have to get ready, okay? Missed opportunities are going to cost not your nonprofit, the nonprofit you're serving and leading, not only money, but momentum. Because if your nonprofit is missing on an opportunity, right? and it had to hire more staff to increase its capacity. And what that was going to do is ensure that it can apply for more funding opportunities. It like slows you guys down because you weren't able to get the support, financial support that you needed to do the things you wanted, right? So you really have to think about how it's impacting you. Now, I want you to drop a comment if you're catching the replay and tell me, when was the last time your organization passed on an opportunity because the back end was not ready? Because then we talked about which opportunities you had to pass by, but did an opportunity pass you by because your back end was not ready? I want you to think about that and drop a comment and tell me in the comments. And if you're watching the replay, still answer, because I always come back to answer every comment. And this one was very impromptu, so I don't expect anybody to share that answer right now, but if you're catching the replay, definitely share your answer in the comments. So what readiness looks like in practice, I want you to take notes here because this is like free game I'm giving you. I want to talk about what being truly ready will actually look like. Now, you want to make sure your core documents are current. So the core documents I'm going to list are the ones that you need to make sure are current and in a folder, a Google Drive folder or whatnot, but it needs to be in one place. You need to make sure you have your mission and vision statements in a Google Doc somewhere in a Google Drive folder. You need to make sure your IRS letter of determination is also available in a folder, right? You need your strategic plan in a folder, all right? You need a board approved annual budget for your organization because a lot of grants uh, are going to ask for that. They're going to ask for your annual budget. Make sure it's an annual budget that is board approved that you can share with grantors, funders, and stuff like that. So the current annual budget that people have on file should have on file is for 2025 because we are in year 2025. A lot of it can be very there are a lot of assumptions if you do not know what's going to be spent, but at the end of the year, you should be able to balance it out based on what you predicted you would be spending and what was approved for that spend, right? Organizational chart. That's another thing that's very important. Now, for organizational chart, I'm going to go a step further with my expertise with grant review panels and trainings that way. Make sure your organizational chart not only lists the names of the individuals and the positions, but also add a short description of why they are a great representative for the community you're serving, for the audience you're serving, because what that does, sometimes some grant applications or some funders will ask you who's on your board because they want to understand, is there any relatability between the leadership and the community you're serving? I'm going to give you an example of that. So let's say that we are an organization we're serving Black men and the leadership is all white women and white men. Do you think there's representation for the audience you serve? You should be able to demonstrate that. If they do not have any sort of relatability, you need to be able to express in the description why this person is the best fit for the role that they're in. Maybe this person is a medical doctor and they've served in a certain region for over 12 years and they have lived experience with this certain population that they are serving within that organization, but you need to be able to describe that. So I always go a step further and tell you in your org chart, you need to make sure you add a little description of why this person is the best fit for the leadership and how they best represent the community you are serving. Okay. And another thing, another core document is, let me stop there. I'm going to stop there. Let's focus on those. If you have state documents, I want you to have those state documents also as core documents that need to be there. So like your state trust registry, your registry documents. Some states require that you register as a tax exempt organization for that state. Make sure you have that letter in there as well. So you need to make sure that your stuff is ready to go. Okay. Make sure it's ready to go because you can clearly speak to your impact in other ways too. That's like other actionable steps I can give you in instructions. Not, don't just say we helped 200 people, but share how and why it mattered. Okay, why it mattered. We helped 200 women in the South Sacramento community that were having a hard time with putting food on the table because there is a trend of job loss or unemployment in this community. And we wanted to make sure we supported these women in a way that helped them show up better for their children. Whatever it is, like you need to explain how and why it mattered. Don't just say 200 people. How and why you need to be able to share data. Yes, 200, but also storytelling, which is going to help you have powerful positioning. Okay. Tiffany, yes, you are so welcome because then I'm on a grant review panel and that's one thing they look for. And I've applied for grants, they ask for that. So make sure in your org chart, you always list like a description of why this person is a great fit for the board because they're looking to see if it's your mama and daddy on the board too. Okay, so if it's not your mom and dad, make sure you list a description. And also the next thing, the next actionable step I want you to take care of, you need to have a grant calendar, an opportunity tracker. Okay, because then I know I'm hosting a workshop, a 3-day workshop where we're working on fundraising calendars and identifying gaps and helping you come up with an action plan. April 22nd to April 24th. But a grant calendar, what it does for you, it organizes the way you apply for grants. So you know what grants you want to apply for. Let's say this year you missed an opportunity, but it's on a rolling deadline, meaning next year it's going to come up again, right? Just put it on the calendar, put that you passed the date and you want to apply again next year, but make sure you put, I always like if I miss an opportunity, I look at the application and I start getting ready for it for next year. Okay. So don't just wait on the next deadline, prepare and get ready. So you know what's coming, you have ample time to apply, and you're equipped to apply for it. And the next thing I want you to do, I want you to make sure that your internal systems are working for you and your nonprofit organization. You need to have CRMs in place, customer relationship management, client relationship management, however you want to call it, right? Even if it's a spreadsheet, you have to be consistent. You have to be tracking the information, like just like I know when I worked as a project director for a nonprofit organization, when I had communications or contact with any partners, I made sure it was on a spreadsheet and I put a note of what was talked about and on what day. Because if that person called me up and said, "Hey, Stacy, you remember when you said XYZ?" No, I don't. Okay, so I needed that spreadsheet to make sure this communication was being tracked. So that's just the relationship part. Make sure you have a CRM in place to manage the relationships you're building and be consistent with it. For donor engagement and management, same thing. Have a CRM system in place to ensure that engagement is consistent and communication is consistent with those individuals, right? And yes, CRMs, I love CRMs, Ricky. Now, SOPs for fundraising, funny enough, I was up until 1 o'clock in the morning because of a CRM, because I was setting up workflows and everything. So that's another story. I geeked out on it last night and I paid for it this morning. So SOPs for fundraising, that's another one. Tiffany, you should know about this. Like making sure you have standard operating procedures in place for fundraising, hiring, onboarding, reporting, and whatever other tasks that are the norm in your organization, because you want to make sure that your systems are working for you. Because if someone ups and leaves, or you have to release someone from their role, you need to make sure you have standard operating procedures in place for these different tasks to ensure that the next person you bring in has a roadmap they can follow. Okay, and the last thing, you want to make sure you pay people well and prioritize sustainably. Because low pay and overwork, it's not a strategy. And I know a lot of people like using the excuse, but we're a nonprofit. We can't pay people. I'm sorry, I just had to make the voice, but we can't pay people because we're a nonprofit strategy. I'm sorry, that is an excuse, and I want nonprofits to stop doing that because that is you spitting in people's face, and I do not like it. You have to respect people enough to pay them well. Some people will not tell you, okay, I deserve more, but I need you to stand on 10 toes, stand on business, and realize what you should be paying people. If you cannot afford to pay people well, hire contractors until you're able to pay people well, because you need to prioritize sustainability, and low pay actually is not helping you reach sustainability. Because what's going to happen when you're not paying people well, they don't have an incentive to work and do the work well because they're going to slack, right? They're not going to give their all because it's just pennies on the dollar for them, right? It's just a way to pay for a purse next month or to put gas in the car. You're not paying them enough to actually care. Unfortunately, a lot of people care about money these days because life is tough out there, okay? So real growth requires real investment in your team. And that's where capacity building is important. You have to start somewhere and you have to look at different opportunities in your area to make sure that you're able to prioritize sustainability and pay people well. I know in the state of California, there are certain grants and things like that to help with these sort of things like operations and stuff like that. You need to start looking into state grants, local government grants, and different things that support workforce development. Because workforce development may be something you can apply for because you're trying to build the workforce within your organization. You're trying to get people jobs, okay? So you have to think outside of the box. You may not be doing workforce development work, but look into if that approach will help you qualify for this. You have to think outside of the box, okay? And most importantly, you have to start making decisions based on capacity, alignment, and sustainability, not pressure. Okay, you have to think about what you're capable of doing, what aligns with your mission, and what helps you become more sustainable. Do not let pressure get to you and stand on your neck, even though I, I will tell you things that get you in your feelings, right? Because it's true and people don't like hearing the truth about themselves. I know I get in my feelings, go cry, get up, and keep moving. But that's why I say what I need to say because you need to rip off that band-aid, get it together, and keep it moving. Okay. So you like some organizations can be very small, right? Serving the community, but lacking infrastructure. So when they start documenting their impact, clarifying the board roles, creating basic grant readiness checklists, which is big, right? And setting up simple monthly review systems, what can happen is that they can apply for grants and actually get them because they were ready. Because a lot of applications go out for nonprofits in terms of grants and stuff like that. A lot of them were declined, rejected because they didn't follow instructions, they weren't ready, right? And they're not able to show their value, nor talk like, and they don't talk about it well because they're not ready. Okay, so readiness should be seen as a strategy because it will help you as a leader and your nonprofit as a whole build the confidence that it needs, not just for funders, but for your like I said, your leadership and your team. So being ready is a strategy. You just need to understand the value of it and focus on that instead of letting the little things, the minute things distract you. Because yes, you need to be doing work in the community, but is there work that you can do that's within your capacity? Let's say you're educating youth in your community, and right now you do not have the funds to implement these programs. What you can do is try to see if you can get contracts with local schools and see if you can do the program there. If they can pay you to do it. You can't get a grant, you got to think outside the box. See if you can get contracts with schools or after school programs. If you can do an after school program and teach a program there, like if you can host it virtually as a workshop and tell parents about it, Go on a parenting group on Facebook and tell them about the program and tell them we are a nonprofit. This is what we're doing. We would love parents to show up. Do it virtually so you can start collecting data that way because social media is free. Okay, if you can start gathering data through doing work virtually, do it because then you'll start compiling the data that you need to show your impact because then start that way and then you're building an audience, you're building your list because if you invite people to a virtual workshop, make sure you have uh make them sign up for reminders and build your email list because then I don't know why people sleep on email lists. You think it's only like business owners and entrepreneurs that want email lists? No, nonprofits need to build their email list too. Because then let's say people join your virtual workshop, right? You have an in-person workshop happening, or you are selling an item, or you need to make people to make donations. Who are you going to reach out to if you don't have an email list? Build your email list. You need to start not yesterday, but like you needed to start yesterday, not today. So start building your email list and think of ways that you can get people to give you that commodity that a lot of you are sleeping on. Their attention, email, right? All of these things are very important. So start working on that. And I want you to honestly ask yourself, well, I want you to be honest with yourself about this. Do we have the right tools and systems to pursue the next big opportunity? That's question one. Question two, I want you to be honest to yourself about this. Are we always playing catch up? Are we proactively planning? Because that's another thing I want you to start asking yourself. And third question, I want you to ask yourself, are we truly ready for growth or just hoping for it? Because sometimes we want it and we're not ready for it. So as you are saying you want it, you better get ready. Because hope is not a system and survival is not a strategy. And I'm going to need you to start working on it. And like I said, you need to stand on 10 toes, right? And get it together, right? Get it together and start getting ready because opportunities pass by if you are not. So if you're not, if you're realizing your nonprofit essentially has outgrown the way it's been operating, where you feel burnt out all the time, you're not doing what you need to do, you're tired of watching grants and opportunities go to organizations that aren't doing the work as well as you are. I know sometimes people get salty about it, like they're not doing nothing, right? But they're getting money. They're doing something right. Okay. So if you feel like that, it's really time for you to book a strategy session with me because I want you to have a focused 90-minute session where we can map out your readiness gaps, the systems you need now, and a plan so you can stop missing funding and start growing in a way that supports sustainability. Okay, the link is in the comments. It's on my Stand story. You'll see the strategic planning session. That's what it is, the strategy session. I'll like definitely book yours because I want you and your organization to start getting ready and not reactive because a lot of things that are happening right now, a lot of people are reacting to it because you don't know what else to do. So I want to help you and your organization prepare and be ready for opportunities instead of just reacting to what's being done to it. And that's what it is. Now, if you are still here and have a question, definitely drop it in the chat. And the last thing I'll say is you don't have to wait for the next big grant or a partnership to actually start building the foundation because when you stay ready, you don't have to get ready. And that's facts. Okay. And that's when your mission starts moving with clarity, not chaos, because you stayed ready. So when the opportunity stared at you in the whites of your eyes, you said, let's go. Okay. So thank you for tuning in. Anybody that was here, drop your questions or thoughts in the comments. I'll follow up soon. We'll talk soon. Again, Stacy here, and I hope you have an amazing weekend. Bye, y'all.